Welcome to Solar Age, the podcast that shines a light on the path to a brighter, more sustainable future. Join us as we explore the transformative power of technology in creating a solar punk world.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the deep dive. We're gonna be talking about some really cool stuff today. Can solar energy plus batteries really power the planet? And sooner than we think? Is that even possible?
It's a question a lot of people are asking.
Yeah.
We've got a ton of interesting sources to help us figure that out. We've got videos from the Electric Viking and CBS News, even some producer notes on this, this kind of crazy concept called superpower.
Whoa, superpower. That sounds kind of like a comic book.
It does, and we'll dive into all that. We even have insights from Tony Seba. You know the guy who came up with the whole superpower idea?
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. So, okay, let's start unpacking all this stuff. First up, China. They're installing renewable energy at a pace that's like 5 VE, 5 nuclear power plants, every week.
Wow, yeah, that's incredible. It's mind-boggling. And it really shows how fast this whole thing is moving. Like Seba talks about this idea of clean disruption, where renewables get so cheap, so fast, that they completely change, disrupt the whole energy landscape.
Okay, so clean disruption. Got it. And speaking of cheap, you know what's cheaper than plywood these days?
What?
Solar panels. Can you believe that? Imagine building a house that basically pays for itself in energy savings.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's actually a great example of what Seba calls God parity.
God parity. Okay, now we're getting really out there.
Well, it sounds kind of crazy, but it basically means that rooftop solar plus batteries are cheaper than the cost of just getting electricity from the grid.
Oh, wow. So, it's cheaper to make your own power than to buy it from the power industry.
Exactly. It's like suddenly even free energy from those big power plants. Doesn't make economic sense.
That is mind-blowing. Okay, so we've got China installing tons of renewables. We've got solar panels cheaper than plywood. What else?
Well, there's Australia. They recently hit a record 102.5% renewable energy on their grid.
Wait a minute. Over 100%. How is that even possible?
It is, and it really shows how important storage and a flexible grid are. Australia is dealing with these huge surges in renewable energy, figuring out how to manage it all.
So they're like pioneers,
Right.
leading the way for a future powered by the sun.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got China, we've got Australia. This is a global thing, right?
Oh yeah, it's happening everywhere, even in places you might not expect.
Like where?
Well, how about Texas?
Texas, the oil and gas giant.
Yep, even Texas is going green. They're becoming a leader in wind and solar power.
Wow, so it's not just about ideology, it's about smart economics and a cleaner future.
Exactly. It's about creating a diverse and resilient energy system that benefits everyone.
I like that, a diverse and resilient energy system. Okay, so we've talked about China, Australia, Texas. What about this superpower idea? You mentioned it earlier.
Oh yeah, superpower. It's basically this vision where we intentionally produce more energy than we need, using cheap and abundant solar.
So it's like having an all-you-can-eat buffet of clean energy.
Yeah. What can we do with that kind of power?
That's the question, isn't it? Imagine powering entire industries just with clean energy, electrifying transportation, maybe even tackling things like water scarcity with desalination plants, all powered by almost free energy.
Okay, I am officially on board with superpower. Sign me up. So listeners, buckle up. We're about to dive deep into a world transformed by solar and batteries. First off, the global solar surge.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers. Globally, solar and battery installations are booming. We recently saw an increase of 29.5%, on top of the previous year's 87% jump.
Whoa, it's like that hockey stick graph everyone talks about.
It really is.
It's like Seba predicted, clean disruption is happening right now.
Yeah.
And the Electric Viking gives us this awesome look at Australia's rooftop solar revolution, showing how it's pushing coal aside, and maybe even making Australia a global leader in renewable energy.
It's interesting because Australia's approach, focusing on rooftop solar, it's different from, say, Germany. They use a mix of ground-mounted solar, wind, and batteries.
So different approaches, but the same goal.
Yeah, exactly.
It shows that there's no one-size-fits-all solution. Exactly. Each region can do what works best for them.
Okay, so different approaches, but one thing's for sure. The price of solar is plummeting.
Yeah, and fast. It's even faster than experts predicted.
And as solar gets cheaper, it's not just competing with fossil fuels, it's becoming the better choice.
Yeah, it's becoming the more economically sensible choice, even when you factor in the cost of batteries.
Which brings us back to God parity.
Right, that idea that solar plus batteries can be cheaper than just getting electricity from the grid.
So what happens to those big power plants? in a world where it's cheaper to make your own power?
That's the big question, isn't it? Is this the end of the line for the traditional energy giants?
I need a minute to think about that. This God parity thing is really revolutionary.
What stands out to you about this concept?
I'm thinking about the potential for democratization. Like, what if individuals and communities could have more control over their own energy, breaking free from those big utilities?
That's a great point. It could really empower communities, especially those that haven't been well served by the traditional energy system.
Exactly. And that brings us back to this idea of empowerment, which I think connects really well with Tony Seba's superpower concept.
Yeah, superpower is definitely a bold idea.
It flips the script on how we think about energy.
It really does.
Instead of just meeting our energy needs, Seba is saying, let's exceed them. Let's build more solar than we need, store the excess in batteries, and create this abundance of clean energy.
And he's done the math. He's looked at all sorts of different places, from Texas to Alaska, Germany to India. And he's shown how this superpower model could work in all these different contexts.
So it's not just some futuristic fantasy.
No, it's doable.
And it could change everything.
It could. It's about thinking beyond just replacing fossil fuels and imagining a future where clean energy is so abundant that it unlocks all these new possibilities.
So what are some of those possibilities? What could we actually do with all this superpower?
Oh man, the possibilities are endless. Like, imagine data centers running on practically free energy, electric vehicles charging super fast.
And what about using it to solve some of the world's biggest problems? Like desalination plants providing clean water, or powering those energy-intensive industrial processes with clean electricity.
Yeah. It's a vision where energy abundance drives innovation and progress.
It's almost like we're on the verge of a new renaissance, but this time it's fueled by sunlight.
I love that. A solar-powered renaissance.
But okay, let's be realistic. This is a huge shift. It's going to require massive investments and big changes.
Oh, absolutely. We need new technologies, new infrastructure, and new policies.
And we need to address the concerns of people who are skeptical about all this.
Yeah, we need to have honest conversations about the challenges.
But before we get into all that, let's look at another really interesting example from our sources, Germany, where solar plus batteries are already cheaper than fossil fuels.
Germany's a great example.
Ugh.
Because they don't even get that much sunlight.
So it proves that this can work even in places that aren't exactly tropical paradises.
Exactly. Yeah, it really is a game changer. Germany proving that affordable renewable energy is possible even in places that don't get a ton of sun.
It's pretty inspiring. And it's not just some small country. We're talking about a major economic powerhouse.
Right. It sends a strong signal to other industrialized nations that a clean energy future is possible. And it's not just a pipe dream.
It's a smart move economically, too.
Exactly. It dismantles that old myth that economic prosperity depends on fossil fuels.
And speaking of inspiring examples, how about Dubai? They're getting solar power for something like 2.99 cents per kilowatt hour.
That's amazingly cheap. It shows how far solar technology has come and how important government policies and incentives can be.
Dubai's commitment to solar is a real wake-up call, especially coming from a region that's so closely tied to oil production.
Yeah, it sends a strong message that even oil-rich nations are seeing the potential of solar.
It's like a domino effect. One success story leads to another. But okay, let's be real for a second. Not everyone is on board with this solar-powered future. There's still a lot of skepticism out there.
That's true. And it's important to address those concerns, because for this transition to succeed, we need more than just technological advancements. We need a shift in public perception and understanding.
Yeah, we need to bring everyone along on this journey. So what are some of the biggest concerns?
Well, one of the biggest is reliability. Can solar and wind power really provide a steady and dependable source of energy?
Yeah, what happens when the sun goes down and the wind stops blowing?
That's where battery storage and smart grids come in. Batteries are like giant energy sponges. They soak up excess power when it's plentiful and release it when demand is high.
Like those massive battery installations in Australia that the Electric Viking showed us.
Exactly. It's like having a backup generator for the whole country. But instead of burning fossil fuels, they're tapping into stored sunshine.
That's a pretty cool image. And what about smart grids?
Smart grids are essential for managing all these distributed energy sources, like rooftop solar wind farms and those battery systems. They allow us to monitor and control energy flows in real time, making sure supply and demand are always balanced.
So it's like a traffic control system for electricity.
Exactly.
And the Electric Viking also talked about grid interconnection, like linking up different regions and countries through transmission lines.
Yeah, that's a key part of this. By connecting grids across regions, we can share excess renewable energy, smooth out those regional variations in production, and create a more stable and reliable energy supply for everyone.
It's like building a global energy highway, allowing clean power to flow freely across borders.
Exactly.
But of course, we also need updated regulations and policies to support this whole transition.
Absolutely, governments have a big role to play. We need policies that incentivize clean energy investments, things like feed-in tariffs, which guarantee a fair price for the renewable energy that people feed into the grid.
And tax credits to help offset the cost of installing solar panels or wind turbines.
Right? And renewable portfolio standards, which require a certain percentage of electricity to come from renewable sources.
It's all about creating the right incentives and making renewable energy the most appealing choice.
Exactly.
But we also need to acknowledge that this transition is going to disrupt the status quo. The fossil fuel industry is going to feel the impact of this shift.
That's right. And it's important to navigate this transition thoughtfully, making sure it's fair and equitable, and that no one gets left behind.
Yeah, we need to support those workers in the fossil fuel sector as they transition to new opportunities in the clean energy industry.
Exactly. Create pathways for them to acquire new skills and find new jobs.
So it's about making sure everyone benefits from this clean energy revolution, not just a select few. And that brings us back to Tony Seba's superpower concept and how it could reshape not just the energy landscape, but entire industries and economies.
Superpower could have a transformative effect on everything, from manufacturing to transportation to agriculture.
It's like unlocking a whole new level of potential.
Exactly. Imagine industries that were once limited by energy costs, suddenly having access to a virtually unlimited supply of cheap, clean power.
Manufacturing could become more efficient and less polluting. Electric vehicles could be charged quickly and affordably.
And agriculture could become more sustainable.
Seba's vision is really inspiring.
It is. He argues that this superpower scenario isn't some distant future. It's something that could happen within the next decade.
It feels like we're at a tipping point, where the economics of clean energy are becoming so compelling that a shift away from fossil fuels is inevitable.
It's an exciting time to be witnessing this clean energy revolution.
Speaking of exciting, let's look at some specific examples from Seba's analysis to see how this superpower concept could work in different parts of the world.
Yeah, he's got some fascinating case studies. From Texas to Alaska, Germany to India.
It's amazing to see how adaptable this idea is.
Let's start with Texas. Seba argues that a slightly larger solar, wind, and battery system could generate enough superpower to meet all of the state's transportation needs.
That's a bold claim, especially coming from Texas.
It is, but the numbers back it up. They could power all the cars, trucks, and buses in Texas with clean electricity.
That would be a huge win for the environment and the economy.
Absolutely.
Okay, now what about Alaska? Can a place with such extreme weather really rely on solar and wind?
Seba thinks so. His team studied 3 different regions in Alaska: Anchorage, Juneau, and Kotzebue, which is north of the Arctic Circle.
Wow, so even way up there.
Even there, they found that a mix of solar, wind, and batteries could meet 100% of the electricity demand.
That's incredible. It shows that with the right technology and commitment, even the most challenging environments can embrace a clean energy future.
It really speaks to the flexibility of renewable energy.
And what about Germany? They're already a leader in renewable energy. But can they go all the way?
Seba says yes. He thinks Germany could power itself entirely with solar, wind, and batteries, using only about 110 hours of battery storage.
And if they invested in an even larger system, they could generate way more power than they need.
Yeah, they get that superpower abundance.
It's a great example for other developed nations.
It really is.
Okay, last but not least, India, a rapidly developing nation with massive energy needs.
India is a really interesting case. Seba points out that India has ideal conditions for solar, wind, and battery storage.
And with the right investments.
They could achieve incredibly low electricity costs.
Like how low are we talking?
He thinks they could get down to 1 cent per kilowatt hour.
Wow, that's practically free.
It would make clean energy accessible to millions of people,
Driving economic growth and improving living standards.
Seba envisions India becoming a global energy superpower.
Fueled by clean energy.
Exactly.
So Seba's analysis shows us that a superpower scenario is possible in all sorts of different contexts, from developed nations to developing nations, from sunny deserts to frigid Arctic regions.
It's a vision of a clean energy future that's within our grasp.
It's optimistic and inspiring.
It is.
But as we've talked about, there are also challenges, real hurdles that we need to overcome.
Yeah, next we need to dive into those challenges and talk about what it'll take to make this clean energy future a reality.
All right, so let's talk about those challenges. We've seen how amazing solar can be, but let's be real, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right?
There are definitely some bumps in the road. Like one of the biggest challenges is the infrastructure. We're talking about a huge amount of infrastructure, solar farms, wind farms, massive battery installations, and smart grids all over the place.
It's a complete transformation of our energy systems, and that's got to be expensive, right?
It is. We're talking about trillions of dollars in investments from governments, businesses, individuals.
It's like a global moonshot for clean energy.
Exactly.
Speaking of moonshots, I keep thinking about those images from the Electric Viking, those enormous battery installations in Australia.
Yeah, they're really leading the way.
But it's not just about the money. We also need the materials and the people to build all this stuff.
Right. We need to ramp up production secure supply chains and train a whole new workforce.
But that's also an opportunity. Imagine all the new jobs that could be created.
Absolutely. This could be a huge economic boom.
And not just that, it could also change the global balance of power.
Yeah, countries could become less dependent on those volatile energy markets.
But okay, let's address the elephant in the room. Skepticism. Some people just don't believe that solar and wind can be reliable.
It's a valid concern.
What happens when the sun goes down or the wind stops blowing?
That's where battery storage and smart grids come in. They can smooth out those fluctuations in renewable energy and make sure the power keeps flowing.
So we've got our giant backup generator, but instead of fossil fuels, we're using stored sunshine and wind power.
Exactly. And the technology is getting better all the time.
And we've also got grid interconnection, connecting different regions and countries so they can share their excess renewable energy.
Right, it's like a global energy sharing network.
But that also brings up another challenge: international cooperation.
Yeah, getting countries to work together can be tricky.
We need to overcome those political hurdles.
And of course, we can't forget about government policies. They have a huge impact on how fast this transition happens.
We need policies that support clean energy.
Things like feed-in tariffs, tax credits, renewable portfolio standards,
We need to make clean energy the best option.
both economically and practically.
But we also need to think about the people who work in the fossil fuel industry. How do we make sure they're not left behind in this transition?
That's a crucial question. We need to create retraining programs and support job creation.
So everyone can benefit from a clean energy future.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the potential of solar, the challenges, and the opportunities. It's a complex issue,
It is.
but I think the takeaway is clear. We have a lot of work to do,
We do.
but it's worth it.
It really is.
A clean energy future is possible, and it's a future worth fighting for.
It is.
This deep dive has been amazing. I've learned so much,
Me too.
and I hope our listeners have too.
I hope so.
So what can our listeners do to be part of this transition?
Well, they can start by learning more about clean energy options in their area. Maybe consider installing solar panels on their homes or supporting businesses that are committed to sustainability.
And use their voices. Advocate for policies that support renewable energy. Talk to their friends and family.
Yeah, every little bit helps.
We've seen that a solar-powered world isn't just a dream, it's a real possibility.
It is.
And it's a future where clean energy can empower us to create a healthier planet and a better world for everyone.
I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a brighter, cleaner tomorrow.
See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Solar Age. We're grateful to have you with us on this journey toward a brighter, sustainable future. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like and subscribe. It really helps us spread this positive message. We would also love to hear from you. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on today's topic or let us know what you would like us to explore next. And don't forget to check out the description for links to relevant materials. Until next time, keep imagining and building a better future.